Divorce lawyers of Reddit, what plot twists, or crazy antics or demands have you seen go down from either spouse? I was in a mediation where it took the couple an hour and a half to split their personal property, retirement accounts, real property, and custody of their 6-month-old son. The rest of the day, about 4 hours, was spent arguing about how to split the time with the dog. For the kid they just put as agreed upon by the parties, but the dog had a strict calendared schedule, working out holidays and strict pickup drop-off times. I was ashamed to be a part of that unbelievable display. Not necessarily a crazy divorce story, but my dad is a lawyer and his friend has been married 3 times, so my dad has been his divorce lawyer twice and his best man 3 times. Took the couple 2 hours to decide who would get the groceries left in the fridge. Estimated value of the groceries was around $40. 2 hours of my time, opposing counsel time, and mediator time added up to about $1,000. It all came down to a Costco Sam's Club size jar of peanut butter. Who keeps peanut butter in the fridge? My dad says he won the custody hearing because my mom got to keep me. Our case fell apart over a massage chair. They had 2 kids. Couldn't let go of the damn chair. I had a case where the estranged wife was calling my client's employer repeatedly, accusing him of theft and other white-collar crimes, to try getting my client fired. The thing is, the children were with her, and she was also demanding child support, which is based on his income, for the job from which she was trying to get him fired. Fortunately, the employer was onto her BS and my client wasn't let go. I was a clerk for a law firm in Marin County. The husband grew weed in the house. The town was supportive and even let him redo his electrical panel to accommodate his crop. Long story short, in the divorce, she demanded half of the weed proceeds. Today it doesn't seem like a big deal, but 12 years ago I was shocked to see that in a court document. When my parents got divorced, my dad had written in the divorce decree that my mother could not make any religious decisions for me, including regular church attendance, baptisms, etc. My mother was raised Mormon and my father was pretty adamant that I would not be raised in that religion too. My ex-wife kicked me during our initial sit-down with our divorce lawyers. Stood up and delivered a full-on front kick to the thigh. She's a bad kicker. Luckily, in retrospect, it may have been because I called her a soulless and just before that. Who knows? My friend's ex-husband tried to force their daughter to have to choose which parent she would live with every year on her birthday. The daughter wanted to live with mom. Dad is always out of town for work anyway. The judge told him that in no way was he going to force this girl to disappoint one of her parents every year on her birthday. Her ex-husband is a big dick. I had a couple arguing for 3 hours over who got the kids on Christmas Day, only to discover at the end that they were both Jewish. I had another woman who said that her husband drained $60,000 from their community bank account to pay for a sex change operation that he never told her he was planning to do. A father and his friend go to pick up his child for some time together. He rings the buzzer of the apartment. No reply. He phones too. No answer. This is odd, because he is there at the scheduled time and the mother never misses an opportunity to claim that he doesn't care about spending time with his child and that he routinely misses scheduled times together. The father and the friend figure that's odd. Let's walk around back to the parking lot to see if her car is still here. They go around to the back to find the mother and child sneaking down the back stairs to leave the building. The child sees the father, yells hi, Daddy, then turns to his mother and says, "See? I told you Dad was coming to see me today." Not a lawyer, but I work in a law office. We had a guy who cheated on his wife transfer all of his money, slowly over time, to his girlfriend before the wife found out about their affair and file for bankruptcy to avoid having to give his now ex-wife anything in the divorce. The ex-wife hid his artwork, works he had purchased long before the marriage, and in mediation she tried to sell it back to him. My now ex-stepmother was getting an 80/20 settlement and refused to agree until the agreement was revised to include a bag of old beer can koozies and a dry rotted pool float. She was crazy, which is why dad was paying her to go away. Hate to be the not a lawyer, but however, this is still in line for what kind of story you're looking for, I think. Basically, rich couple had a really bad falling out. The husband decided that he so hated his ex-wife that he hid all of their money and, last I heard, is still in jail for contempt of court for refusing to give up the location. So yeah, a few years now. Must be a special kind of hate to risk an indefinite sentence, since you can be in jail basically as long as you're held in contempt, which he kept doing each court appearance, just to deny your ex money. Edit, Umodus next found the case and linked to an article, nighttimes.com, about it. The guy did eventually get out. One of my uncle's ex-wives actually hired a hitman to kill my uncle so she could collect his life insurance. The hitman was actually an undercover cop. She did 4 years for the crime. If this gets any response, I'll tell a more in-depth version of the story. Some crazy shit happened. My dad was a divorce attorney for some time. He said people would argue over $150 patio furniture for hours on end at a $300 per hour rate, each side. It's not about the patio furniture. It's about sending a message to your itch of an ex-husband wife. I'm late to the party. But here goes. There's this rich couple that are suing a company for something or other. A guy on the jury is hanging out with a friend one afternoon, and his buddy starts telling him about this cougar he's banging. Supposedly she is a giant, controlling itch, but she spends a lot of her husband's money on him. So he puts up with it. Partway through the convo, he drops her first name, and the jury dude goes, "Wait, is her name?" Friend replies, "Yeah. Do you know her?" Turns out it's the rich lady from the case he is on. The next day he had to recuse himself from the case because he couldn't look at her the same way. The couple's lawyer demanded an explanation as to why he was dropping out in the middle of everything. So he had to tell the judge, the lawyer, the lady, and her husband. Awkward. Anyways, that case was put on hold for a long time because they had a divorce to get to. Oh, and I've been a piece of shit lurker for like a year and a half. And this is my first post. So yay. My 2 favorites from working in a legal office. 1. Husband and wife get divorced. Wife went into the marriage with her own house and 3 cars. Him with nothing. She mortgaged the house in her name, as the bank wouldn't give her anything if his name was on it too, to let husband start a trucking business. Buys all his trucks for him and pays off the mortgage herself. He becomes successful. They divorce. She just wants enough money from him to square her mortgage. He can have the business and everything else. He sells everything to his friend for $10 next to nothing so that he's got nothing on his name and doesn't have to pay her squat. She's now going to lose the house. 2. Custody battle over 2 children. Father threatened the mother with a shotgun. Cut her phone lines. Got charged for assault on her. She flees town with the children. He demands she come back, and she agrees to visitation so the kids can see their father. During one visitation he punches her brother in the face at the changeover point and tries to steal the children. Visitation stops and he chucks a fit that she's stealing his children and she's lying about being afraid of me. I did nothing. The court psychologist signs off that he'd be an emotionally abusive sole parent. When the court says no to his demands that he get sole custody, he verbally abuses the judge, his lawyer, his barrister, the psychologist, and the independent children's lawyer. In front of the entire courtroom. He narrowly avoids arrest. And the whole time this case is going he's always yelling and screaming in the office that the court system is biased and only women get custody. It's a mummy's court. You're all sexist against men. etc etc. No. You're just a doucher. 3. Edited bonus. Man has wife and 3 kids. Everything in his name. Finds a younger model. Dumps her by text message. changes the locks, and goes into hiding. Wife has a chronic illness that means she can't work. And now she's stuck with 3 kids. And to rub it in, he's changed all the bills and payments to her name, mother's address, and mailed her nearly $10,000 worth of accounts. And no one can find him. Not a divorce lawyer, just someone that has gone through a child custody battle, and I had to tell my one great story under oath. Sit through this one, Reddit. I can't make this shit up. My ex and I had broken up, and she decided to get an apartment 30 minutes away from where our apartment was. It's probably for the best so we'd never run into each other in public. My ex is a first grade teacher and found a school to work for on that side of town. My daughter went to school there too. Just to make it easier on her mother, I'd drive there and pick up my daughter from school every single day during the week because I work at 5 AM and got off at 1:30 PM. I became good friends with all of the stay-at-home moms and would talk with them every day after school while our kids ran off their energy on the playground. On my days off, I'd drop her off and just hang out on that side of town and get to try new restaurants, find new comic book shops, etc. On one particular day, I decided to try Weeman's Chronic Tacos for lunch. Now, what they don't tell you about Weeman's Chronic Tacos is that you need to be within 30 minutes of a toilet after you eat it. I was on my way to get my daughter and I felt like I had to fart really bad. I just casually looked around and let loose in the car. It was at this moment that I knew I had made a terrible mistake. Yes. Reddit. I sharted my pants 30 minutes from home. 10 minutes before I had to pick my daughter up from school. I had a simple decision to make. Go up there and get her anyway, or make something up and come back later. I checked myself out and thankfully it didn't show through my jeans, so I waited in my car until I heard the bell ring. I went up there quickly and took my daughter aside. Sweetheart, this is really embarrassing. Daddy had an accident. You can't play with your friends today. We need to go. Like a trooper. She understands and we leave. Now. I told you that story to tell you this story. I left out one major detail above. The routine was, I'd pick my kid up. She'd play with her friends. Her mother would come out to the playground and see her for a little while and then leave. On this particular day, I broke the routine. On the ride home, my phone is going off like crazy. My phone was on silent and needless to say, I wouldn't have answered it anyway. I get home and I have 20 missed calls, all with voicemails. Fast forward to our custody hearing. I've got 2 lawyers. She doesn't have one. Without getting into too many details, it generally isn't going very well for her. She's desperate. Really desperate to make me look like an unfit parent. Representing herself while I'm on the stand. Asks about what happened on that particular day. The day I kept her daughter away from her. Reddit. I looked at my lawyers, who I also had to tell this story because I saw this coming. They smiled and gave me that. Well. Go on. Look. I had to tell the story about how I shit my pants after eating Weeman's Chronic Tacos to a judge, a bailiff and a court stenographer. Midway through this story, the judge goes from looking at me with this piercing glare to covering her mouth, trying so hard not to burst out into laughter. Seeing how well received my story was, my ex had no further questions. The judge ended my getting off the stand with, well, now that's on public record. I froze. That's on public record ? Oh man. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is why I tell this story now. If you were to look up my court case, there is an official version of this story somewhere on public record. I hope this is the kind of thing you were asking for, OP.D. Not an attorney, but a friend demanded that her child being fed a vegetarian diet be written into the custody visitation agreement with her ex. It does seem a bit crazy, but considering their kid had never had meat and he was threatening to ply her with hot dogs on visits, which would make her violently ill, it's not as crazy as it sounds. My ex-husband and I got divorced after 4 years. We had no kids. We were still dirt poor. So we went to a divorce center, paid a couple $100, and did it ourselves. We are still friendly 3 years later. People we know genuinely think our friendly divorce is one of the weirdest divorces they have ever seen. I was a clerk for a family court judge. We had a woman try to get an injunction to keep the father from taking the daughter on a trip to Disney World to play in a concert. It was sad. The married couple fought over their kids, only due to the fact that their son was on the road to become a professional football player. They both admitted it to my face, and eventually the kid emancipated himself, since he couldn't take the it storm anymore. They both spent about $180K in all kinds of legal fees and bribes to their son, while totally ignoring their daughter. In the end they divorced, poor with an angry daughter who moved to his brother's place. Just to clarify, the son was 17 when it started. But when they finally divorced, he was well off and already doing GR8 in his sport. Won't reveal the name. The kids are still doing great. No idea at the parents. But phew. Finally had my time to shine. Gold 3N. No more troll posts. P. Not a lawyer, but remember reading a news article about a guy in my hometown. His wife took everything in the divorce, including his prized '68 Corvette. As she was coming over to pick it up, he rolled it onto the driveway, drained all the oil, and fired it up. Then he sat there in a lawn chair with a six-pack. This is a true story and it happened in New Jersey. Guy getting a divorce becomes suspicious and insanely jealous that his separated wife is having an affair. He secretly follows her to a bar and waits outside in his car. She comes out many hours later in the dark and follows another car to her house. Husband follows her, staying back, and parks down the block. He gets out, sees the house her car is parked at, and goes around into the backyard. He's sneaking around looking in windows and finally opens a sliding glass door and enters the house. His wife and the guy she is with hear him moving around, lock the bedroom door, and call 911. He starts pounding on the bedroom door and shouting at his wife. And then the cops kick in the front door. The cops get everyone downstairs to sort this out. That is when the guy realized for the first time his wife was sleeping with his own divorce lawyer. The lawyer got in lots of trouble. Definitely one of the most entertaining ethical board decisions of all time. I had a batshit crazy client once involved in a dissolution of domestic partnership, not married, but had been together 20 years. She had an insane amount of stories about the opposing party, drug dealer. He had killed a man, and all sorts of other wild accusations. No idea what was reality vs what she made up. They had millions between them and were fighting over every last Native American artifact, household item, etc. At one point she offered me gold nuggets as a gift because she liked me so much, which I had to ethically refuse as a non-de minimis gift from a current client. I eventually got off the case when I changed jobs. I think it's currently under appeal now, so I can't give any further detail. But there was some pretty crazy stuff involved in this case, including accusations that the opposing party was sleeping with his attorney, which shockingly had some basis in reality when investigated. But I got off the case right around then. I'm not a lawyer, but my parents divorced when I was 17 and it didn't finalize until I was 20. When I was a minor, my mom was saying I was living in another country with her when it was clear through school records I was not out of the country. She made up stories that my dad abused me and didn't feed me, when in 2 months of living with my dad I had a much better life than 16 horrible years with her. After I turned 18 she put in some petition for custody of me saying I was kidnapped, which got rejected automatically because I was an adult at that point. I worked in divorce law for a bit more than a year, and then got the duck out. Some highlights of what I've seen. Guy cheats on wife with wife's best friend. Wife steals $6 million from his bank account and disappears. Guy gets multi-million-dollar inheritance. During divorce he spends it all on strippers. Literally the whole thing. Couple has over $5 million in assets. Spend over 3 years getting divorced. Couple has liquidated retirement and sold their house. Still not divorced. Lawyers have millions of dollars. This is largely the reason I'm done with this sheet. I know I'm late, but this story is too good. When I was young, my parents had milk delivered to the house each week. It was a good deal. The milk was from a local coop, and the delivery routes were privately owned. The owner of our route got divorced and told us the story of his mediation. She and her lawyer had calculated the value of his milk delivery business to be $2.5 million, mind you. This was the mid-80s. She of course is seeking half that amount. His lawyer begins to balk that their estimate is unfair. It was probably legitimate when you calculated assets, inventory, balance, lack of debit, and revenue, and they would never agree to it. But he is cut short by his client. Our milkman then looks across the table and says something to the effect of, "I agree to your estimation. Go ahead and cut me a check." Everybody shows up at 6. You'll have to be there by 5 to have everything ready for them. He then tosses the work keys across the table as he sits back down. They eventually agreed upon a more reasonable number.